This is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.
Good evening, Philippines, and good day, world. I am Franco Baranda. It's Saturday, the 19th of August, and you're watching Newsline World. We're here to bring you the top stories we've gathered from all over the globe. First, Maui's emergency chief resigns amid criticisms after he defended his agency's decision not to sound the warning sirens as blazes swept across the island. Japanese and South Koreans joined together to protest against the first ever trilateral summit between Korea, Japan, and the United States. Chinese President Xi Jinping confirms attendance in the upcoming BRICS summit in South Africa this August. Despite hopes of participating in the G20 summit, India said that Ukraine is not invited in the high-profile event. And Iran's foreign minister visits Saudi Arabia as tensions ease after the two nations reach a detente with the mediation of China. These and more for tonight's edition of Newsline World. No casualties reported. Ukrainian drone intercepted in Moscow's business district. A Ukrainian drone aimed to Moscow's financial hub was intercepted and taken down by Russian air defense forces, with the wreckage crashing into a non-residential complex within the Expo Center complex. The incident occurred at around 4 a.m. local time, prompting a temporary suspension of flights to and from Vnukovo Airport as a precaution. No casualties were reported, and emergency services were dispatched to the scene to assess the situation. Meanwhile, Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin said the wreckage of the UAV fell in the area of the Expo Center and did not cause significant damage to the building. Russian officials have labeled these drone strikes as acts of desperation stemming from Ukraine's failure to breach Russian lines during its ongoing counteroffensive. The tensions between the two countries remain high, with international concerns and diplomatic efforts to ease the situation. A senior NATO official retracted his comments regarding Ukraine's territorial claims following a severe backlash he received from Kiev. Jean Domingo reports.
Thank you very much.
Stian Jensen, Chief of Staff to NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, issued an apology on Wednesday for his recent suggestion of a land for peace arrangement concerning Ukraine's territorial claims. The proposal, which drew strong condemnations from Kyiv, involved Ukraine ceding territory in exchange for NATO membership. Jensen made the statement during a forum in Arendal, Norway, emphasizing its context within broader discussions about potential future scenarios in Ukraine. Acknowledging the negative response, Jensen told Verdun's gang that his comment had been a mistake and should not have been phrased as it was. Despite the controversy, he praised Ukraine's resolute efforts against Russia during the forum and expressed interest in the extent to which Ukraine could regain lost territory. Jensen also noted that decisions regarding negotiations with Moscow would be determined by the Ukrainian people. VG's coverage of Jensen's remark elicited a strong backlash from Ukrainian officials. Mikhail Podolyak, an advisor to President Vladimir Zelensky, criticized the proposal on social media, labeling it ridiculous. He argued that accepting such a deal would equate to surrendering democratic values and bolstering the Russian regime. Alexei Danilov, head of the Ukrainian National Security and Defense Council, declared that negotiations with Russian President Vladimir Putin were off the table, advocating for Russia's dismantlement, akin to Carthage. Against the backdrop of these developments, Ukrainian forces launched a major counteroffensive in early June, aiming to cut off Crimea by reaching the Sea of Azov. But these efforts have not yielded success so far, resulting in substantial losses. The Russian Defense Ministry reported 43,000 casualties and the destruction of nearly 5,000 pieces of heavy equipment, including tanks and combat vehicles supplied by Western backers. Despite providing military support, these backers maintain their stance of non-involvement in the conflict. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Jean Domingo, SMNI News.
The president of Belarus said he will instantly respond if Ukraine, Poland, or the Baltic countries act aggressively against his country. He also said that the main objective of Russia in Ukraine had already been achieved. But what exactly is the main goal that he is pertaining to? Carlo de la Peña tells us more.
Alexander Lukashenko, the president of Belarus, said that there can only be one threat against his country, and that is the aggression that could begin on the part of Ukraine, Poland, Lithuania, and Latvia. And should it happen, Belarus will respond instantly with everything they have. Lukashenko made the grim warning in an interview with Ukrainian journalist Diana Panchenko. The Belarusian president said, and quote, "We are not competing with them. Yet we will deliver an overwhelming strike on them, and they will end up with an overwhelming loss and damage." End of quote. He said that despite Kiev being surrounded by Russian troops at one point during the conflict, Russia still did not storm in the Ukrainian capital. Lukashenko revealed that he told Putin that Kiev needs to be taken in order for the war to end. But Putin said that it can be done immediately. However, many people in Kiev will die. Meanwhile, asked whether Putin had ever revealed the conditions under which Russia would consider that the operation had achieved its goals, Lukashenko said while they never discussed such topic, he can still tell his position on the matter. He then said that Russia ensured that Ukraine will never be a threat again, as Moscow has already achieved the main objective of its special military operation. He said that unlike before, Ukraine will no longer be so aggressive towards Russia after the war, and that Ukraine will be different, as people in power will be more cautious towards Russia. It can be remembered that in June, Lukashenko reiterated that the conflict did not start in February 2022, nor in 2014, but instead the conflict started during the 2004 Orange Revolution in Ukraine, and that everything that happened afterwards led to the present-day conflict. Lukashenko said that the only mistake they made was that they failed to resolve the problem in 2014 to 2015, around the time that Ukraine neither had an army nor a resolve. It can be noted that the two Minsk agreements between Russia and Ukraine brokered by Germany and France in Belarus had failed. Meanwhile, the ex-leaders of France and Germany, Francois Hollande and Angela Merkel themselves, admitted last fall that the so-called roadmap for peace was just a ploy to buy Ukraine more time to build up its armed forces. Even Ukraine's former president, Petro Poroshenko, revealed in a June interview with Italian newspaper Corriere della, boasted his role in rebuilding Ukraine's military under the cover of the Minsk agreements, and it was done by him inviting NATO instructors and buying weapons and vehicles while he was in power. Reporting, this has been Carlo de la Peña, SMNI News.
Chinese President Xi Jinping will personally attend the upcoming BRICS summit in South Africa. Justin Nazario reports.
Chinese President Xi Jinping will participate in the BRICS Leaders Summit and visit South Africa from August 21 to 24, as confirmed by China's Foreign Ministry. Xi is also scheduled to be received by Ramaphosa at the Union Buildings, located in the country's economic hub of Johannesburg, on the sidelines of the summit. The summit involving Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa will convene in Johannesburg on August 22 with the goal to reshape this economic coalition into a potent geopolitical force challenging Western dominance. Russian President Vladimir Putin, who is currently facing an international arrest warrant for alleged war crimes in Ukraine, will not attend in person. He will participate via video call, and his foreign minister Sergei Lavrov will personally attend the summit. The BRICS expansion will be a key topic. About 40 nations, including Saudi Arabia and Argentina, expressed interest. China seeks to welcome more members to bolster its global influence, while Brazil is cautious about the dilution of significance. Russia supports expansion in this stance, however, is undecided. President Xi will also co-chair the China-Africa Leaders Dialogue with South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, enhancing diplomatic ties between China and Africa. Reporting, this is Minister Nazario, SMNI News.
Meanwhile, BRICS member India is also set to host the G20 summit in New Delhi. Many top leaders will attend these two key events, BRICS this August and G20 in September. Although one country, Ukraine, was not invited to the G20 summit despite its government saying that they are working with India and partners for further attendance. Jane Cognita has the details. On the other hand,
Foreign Minister Subramanyam Jaishankar has reiterated his country's position on Ukraine's potential participation at the upcoming G20 summit in September. According to Jaishankar, India's position regarding Ukraine's attendance is due to the fact that G20 is primarily focused on fostering growth and development, leaving the issue of conflict resolution to be addressed by the UN Security Council. It can be noted that G20 is a gathering of leaders of the world's major economies, and Russia is a permanent member of the G20. Meanwhile, India's foreign minister said that aside from the G20 members, India extended invitations to Spain, Bangladesh, Nigeria, Mauritius, Egypt, the Netherlands, Oman, Singapore, and the United Arab Emirates. Ukraine's absence from this list is attributed to its divergence from the summit's economic focus. Emphasizing strong bilateral ties, Jaishankar highlighted the engagement between Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Ukrainian counterpart. Ukrainian officials responded by expressing their collaborative efforts to secure an invitation, pointing out the economic implication of Russia's actions on the Black Sea grain agreement. The G20, comprising major economies like Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Canada, China, France, Germany, India, and others, accounts for a substantial portion of global GDP, trade, and population. Reporting, this has been Jane Cognita, SMNI News.
Pastor Apollo also talked about the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine and said that both parties to find a peaceful solution without any interference. The good pastor also delved into the years of persecution of Russian-speaking Ukrainians in Donbass, a persisting problem that has not been covered by the Western media, and as to why Putin launched what he calls a special military operation to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine. Let's know more about this report from Angel Pastoro.
Go back to the root of the problem without interference from others.
This is what Pastor Apollo Siki Buloy said when asked on how the situation between Russia and Ukraine be solved as the conflict grinds on for more than a year since it first broke out in February 24, 2022. The good pastor believes that the problem can only be solved by going back to its root cause.
USSR was one, and Ukraine is part of the United Soviet Socialist Republic. They are only one. Like the US, all states are one. This is the USSR, Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. And Ukraine is one of them. And they are borders only with Russian land. So they are considered brothers. So during this time, there is no boundary between Russia and Ukraine. So, Russian-speaking people also are now in the boundary we call Ukraine. When there was already the dismantling of the USSR, they all became states by themselves. They all became nations by themselves. That's why there's already a demarcation between Russian land and Ukraine land. But during the USSR period, there are only one.
The good pastor also delved into the years of persecution of Russian-speaking Ukrainians in Donbas, a persisting problem that has not been covered by the Western media.
So there are Russian-speaking people now who are in the Ukrainian territories. We call Donbas region, which is Luhansk, Donetsk, and other like Zaporizhia or others. They are the ones that are still speaking Russian. Because once upon a time, they were together. And so, now, nagkaroon ng conflict dyan because Ukraine wanted to really become identified by their own culture. Separating them from Russian culture. They went to the extreme of saying, we don't want to hear Russian-speaking people here. Don't speak Russian here. Culture of Russia here. No more, no more, no more, no more. Separate. How can you separate this? These are Russian-speaking people that are in the territory of Ukraine called Donbas. That's why they were persecuted before. And it was not reported in the Western media that these Donbas, Russian-speaking people, now in the territory of Ukraine, have been persecuted. They were bombed by the Zelensky government. 14,000 na yung namatay dyan.
After years of persecution and shelling faced by Russian-speaking Ukrainians in Donbas, Pastor said that the calls for help has long been endured by the Russian Federation under the leadership of President Vladimir Putin.
E nagrereklamo sila ngayon doon kay Putin. Tulungan mo naman kami kasi mga Russian kami. Oh, magkatabi lang tayo. 14 years tiniis ni Putin yan. O 8 years ba yun? Tiniis niya. Hanggang sa gumawa sila ng tinatawag na agreement. O, si Zelensky initialed it. Yung Minsk agreement. Na they still belong to Ukraine, pero parang autonomous sila.
Pastor Apollo also delved into Ukraine's agonization over Russian culture and language within its social fabric. Based on the 2001 Ukrainian consensus, about a third of Ukrainians have named the Russian language as their mother tongue, and in more recent surveys, majority of Ukrainians say they speak Russian.
Autonomous, but they still belong there. Pero huwag niyo galawin ang kanilang lingwahe kasi Russian sila, pati yung kultura nila. Eh yun ang gustong erasin ng Zelensky ng Ukraine. Oh, eh di doon nagkaroon ng conflict, nag-away na. Dito sila nagpapatulong kay Putin. Ganon din doon sa Crimea. Russian-speaking din ang mga tao doon. Oh, ganon din ang ginagawa. Pine-persecute sila. Kung ayaw niyo dito, eh, balik kayo sa Russia. Eh, paano lang iwan lupa nila yun?
The failure of the Minsk agreements caused by what Pastor Apollo described as meddlers were also among the key reasons as to why the Russia-Ukraine situation spiraled out of control and is now what Europe describes as the largest crisis since the World War II. The good pastor was referring to two Minsk agreements that were crafted in an effort to solve the ethnic conflict between Russians and Ukrainians in Ukraine. However, both agreements failed.
Pero pumasok itong tagapaggulo. Ayaw niya. Ayaw niya. Oh, kami susuporta sa iyo. Basta wag yan.
The good pastor said Ukraine has become a proxy war between Russia and the West and how the current leadership of Ukraine was pressured.
Ginawang proxy war ngayon. Siya ginamit. Na-pressure siya. Kasi hindi naman siya statesman o politician. Comedian siya. Eh, nadala. Oh, nang nadala siya, ayun, pinagpatuloy. Hanggang itong mga nagrereklamo, pinapatay sila, napuno ngayon si Vladimir Putin. Ang ginawa niya, sabi niya, alisin natin sa isang military operations, itong mga nanggugulong, mga neo-Nazis. Alam niyo sa World War II, ang Russia at ang Germany, kaaway yan. Pati na yung mga allies. Pero ang maraming namatay talaga para sa World War at ang nakapanalo talaga sa World War, hindi yung British o Amerika, ang Russia. 30 million people ang namatay sa Russia para salubungin lang si Hitler. Sila talaga yung pumasok ngayon nung nagapi si Hitler sa Germany. Kaya sila talaga yung nakagapi kay Hitler. Pero maging mabait pa rin sila, binigay pa rin nila sa allies yung division kung saan sila dapat. Ito yung British, ito yung American, ito yung Russian. Ganon ang nangyari. So, ang nangyari ngayon, nagkaroon ng military operations, special military operation para gapiin ang mga neo-Nazis na sa army na siyang pumapatay sa mga Russian-speaking people. Hindi in-honor yung Minsk Agreement. Hindi in-honor na pinirmahan. Umatras na yung mga Russian noon nung pinirmahan yun nagpagit na itong tagapagulo. Hindi ko na ibabanggitin ng pangalan, baka magalit lalo sa akin. Nagpagit na. Nagpatuloy ang gera. Ang isip ni Putin ngayon, special operation. Alisin sila na gumagapi doon sa mga, at saka ang kanyang kondisyon ngayon is i-release na ng Ukraine itong mga teritoryo ng Donbas na Russian-speaking people. Tapos ang gulo.
Just recently, Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba said that talks between Russia and Ukraine will not happen as long as Putin is president, and that Zelensky and Putin will never be able to be seen at a negotiating table together. In fact, Ukraine has passed a law banning talks with Russia and reneged on the agreement negotiated in March 2022 in Turkey. The first and probably the last time that Putin and Zelensky met was at the table in Paris together with French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Angela Merkel. Putin, on the other hand, said that Russia is always ready to negotiate an end to hostilities, but he has already declared that the 4 regions he had annexed have become citizens of Russia forever. Reporting, this has been Angel Pastor, SMNI News.
Australia has announced a plan to address its housing crisis, and it's by receiving a so-called new home bonus for Australian states and territories. The details with Sheena Selim.
Experts warned that Australia is heading towards a severe housing crisis with a projected shortage of 107,000 homes by 2027. The government grapples to address the issue amid complaints from renters and charities who are experiencing the gravity of the situation firsthand. The government announced a 4-year plan estimated to cost $329 million. The goal is to support up to 10,000 homeowners annually during the next 4 years. In the National Cabinet meeting held on Wednesday, the state and territories agreed to pass legislation this year to implement the Help to Buy scheme as part of an election promise during the 2022 federal campaign. Moreover, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese emphasized the importance of passing the $10 billion Housing Australia Future Fund, which will build 30,000 new social and affordable housing properties in the next 5 years.
This is a scheme that should have begun on July 1, and every day of delay is less social housing. The time for political games is over.
Prime Minister Anthony Albanese also promised for states and territories to receive a new home bonus of up to $3 billion if they help reach an updated target of 1.2 million new homes over the next 5 years. A research paper published by the Parliamentary Library warned that Australia would need 671,000 public housing units by 2032. Meanwhile, the opposition argued that the government's 5-year housing plan will only deliver just 3% of the social housing units needed for the next decade. Reporting from New South Wales, this is Sheena Selim, SMNI News, Australia.
The United States is seeing an alarming surge of homelessness so far this year because of the increasing cost of living and the country's economic downturn. Sigrid Castañeda has the details.
A recent article in the Wall Street Journal reported that the U.S. has seen a record increase in the number of homeless people in the country so far this year. According to the journal, the increasing number of homelessness is due to the economic downturn and increase in living costs. The data comes from over 300 entities that count homeless people in areas ranging from states to entire U.S. states, and the tally, this time, includes over 577,000 homeless people. The data revealed that the number of homeless people increased to about 11% from 2021. This marks the sharpest surge since the tracking began in 2007. Meanwhile, the second highest increase in the number of homeless people was seen in 2019 at 2.7%. The journal also said that the actual number of homeless people may even be higher as there's a large number of them that were not included. Data gathered from other sources also revealed that about 30% of homeless people are based in California. While a local survey shows that many homeless, they are troubled by serious health issues and they hardly have access to medical services. The data also shows that 2/3 of the interviewees have chronic diseases. Meanwhile, half of them are poor in health conditions, while 12% of them experience frequent delusions. 1/3 of the respondents said they served jail time once, and 3/4 said they were victims of violence at one time. Meanwhile, up to 65% of the respondents have taken drugs, while 62% of them have excessive drinking problems. For God and my beloved Philippines, this has been Sigrid Castañeda, SMNI News.
In Japan, protesters rallied right in front of the official residence of Prime Minister Fumio Kishida in Tokyo to oppose the summit among the leaders of Japan, South Korea, and the United States. Natsubi Kojima reports.
Both Japanese and Korean residents joined together to rally, hoping to send a message to the leaders of the three countries, the US, Japan, and South Korea, to stop raising tensions in East Asia. According to the release, the strengthening of tripartite military forces and joint military exercises is only a reminder of the increasing tension in the region, and that this type of meetings will only benefit the United States.
この間、岸田内閣が、アジアの緊張を高める、軍拡を行ってきました。でまたユン・ソンミョル大統領になってから、日米韓の合同軍事演習が何回も行われています。これらのことは東アジアの緊張を高め、戦争へのつながる、軍事的な挑発だと私は思っています。
Some activists also criticized Japan not only for failing to reflect on its war crimes, but also for continuously strengthening its defense alliance with the United States. Moreover, they deemed Japan's acts as irresponsible for an Asian country suffered from war atrocities, especially during the World War II.
戦争に対しての反省がきちんとなされていない。それは言葉だけの反省ではなく、本当に被害を被ったアジアの人たちに対する責任を取っていない。そういった上でさらにまた新しい戦争に加担するというよりは、大きな力を持ってそれを押し広げようとしているその日本政府に反対の声を上げなければならない。
首脳会談がもともと平和的な話し合いだったらいいんですけれども、そうじゃなくって、例えば今問題になっている福島の汚染水の放流を事実上決めたりとかですね、でこれから軍事同盟を強化して東アジアの戦争危機を高めるような、そういう首脳会談と見ているので反対しています。
以上、日本から小島なつみニュースをお伝えしました。SMNI News Japan.
The head of the emergency management head in Maui resigned from his post amid criticisms over his handling of the deadly wildfires in the fire-ravaged Hawaiian island. Anissa de Guzman has the details.
Maui Emergency Management Agency Administrator Herman Andaya filed an immediate resignation due to health reasons 9 days after the deadliest wildfire in modern U.S. history burned Maui. His resignation comes a day after defending the agency's failure to activate its alarm system during the devastating wildfires that started last week. Amid fierce criticisms and question as to why the emergency sirens were not activated, Andaya said the sirens are mainly used to warn people about tsunamis, which automatically means residents should seek for higher ground. In this case, the embattled administrator said the agency was afraid the people would have gone mauka, a Hawaiian word for mountainside, which meant residents could have panicked and moved to areas where fires were burning. When asked whether he regretted not activating the emergency sirens as the wildfires spread across West Maui, Andaya said he does not. Maui Mayor Richard Bizan said they will find a replacement as soon as possible due to the gravity of the crisis. Hawaii owns the largest system of outer alert sirens in the world, which was created after a 1946 tsunami that killed more than 150 people. Its website says they may be used to alert for fires. Hawaii's official government website, however, said the sirens may be used to alert for fires. President Joe Biden vowed to visit Maui next week after receiving massive backlash over controversial no-comment response regarding the rising death toll on the Hawaiian island. A White House correspondent asked the question a few hours after he spent relaxing at a popular beach resort destination in Delaware. Di siya na ni Sadi Guzman, Drangan Chakontep Mahanakon, SMNI News, Kwaterhay, Sawadika.
Thai lawmakers will meet again next week to vote for a new prime minister to end months of political deadlock that crippled attempts in electing the country's future leader. Chatmongkom Pisamay-Goson reports.
On Tuesday, the 22nd of August, Thailand's parliament will attempt once more to elect Thailand's 30th prime minister. House Speaker Wan Muhammad Normatak confirmed the schedule during an interview with reporters. Move Forward Party leader Pitalim Jalanrat, who topped the May general election, faced rejection in his bid to become prime minister by conservative and military-backed lawmakers multiple times. Meanwhile, Thailand's Constitutional Court dismissed a petition to renominate Pita on Wednesday, the latest blow to the Western-educated prime ministerial hopeful who vowed to make changes in the decades-old lèse majesté law as part of his campaign promise. Pheu Thai Party, which won the second highest number of votes during the May election, is now leading a multi-party coalition government without its former allied Move Forward Party or MFP. The coalition led by Pheu Thai now involves 9 political parties, with real estate tycoon Setha Thavisin as its candidate for prime minister. A candidate must receive approval and secure majority from both houses of parliament to become a prime minister. In the latest development, the United Thai Nation or UTN, the party of outgoing Prime Minister General Prayut Chan-o-cha, promised to support Pheu Thai's candidate for prime minister. With the inclusion of UTN as its 10th member, the coalition now boasts 274 houses, which is more than half of the total seats required in the lower house. รายงานจากราชบุรีนายชัดมงคลวิสมัยโกศล SMNI News ประเทศไทย สวัสดีครับ
The German economy is treading water with its traditionally strong industries already seeing historic lows. CGTN's Peter Oliver reports.
Still Europe's economic powerhouse, but the latest numbers don't lie, and they aren't looking good for the German economy. Industrial output was down 1.5% in June compared with the same period last year and followed a 0.5% decline in May. At the same time, the hugely powerful and traditionally profitable German automobile industry spooked markets with a 3.8% contraction in June, after posting growth figures in the previous month. The German construction industry was worth just short of $500 billion last year. It shrank by almost 3% in June. New construction projects are down 47% on the previous 2 years, and new building permits dropped over a quarter in the first 5 months of 2023. Economies are an ecosystem. What happens in one area impacts others. For civil engineer Philip Hoffman, a double whammy of factors has set in motion a potential tsunami for his groundworks company.
I think our economic situation in civil engineering right now is just the beginning. We have a 30% decline in this year alone. I think we're going to bottom out in the next 4 to 5 years. By then, we will have had a drop of 90%. Why? On the one hand, the corona pandemic unsettled people. And now that that's over, we have rising interest rates. It's almost impossible for the average small builder to build with high interest rates because at 4 to 5%, a mortgage is just unaffordable.
The Free Democrats who run the finance ministry as part of the three-way ruling coalition acknowledge the country is in an economic slump, but say that references to Germany as the sick man of Europe are unfounded. Finance Minister Christian Lindner has 50 new tax policies that he hopes will jumpstart things. However, those at the fiscal sharp end aren't sure that this is the elixir of life for the German economy.
I don't see any help here, neither now nor 3 years ago, when they should have helped. Even if you change something now or help in any way, this help will come almost too late, because it takes 2 to 3 years at the earliest to take effect. By that time, we will have hit a whole new bottom. We don't feel like we'll survive until then at all.
The German central bank, the Bundesbank, predicts a 0.3% total contraction in the economy over 2023. There's some good news in the pharmaceutical sector, where German companies posted 7.9% growth in June. But even that came off the back of a 13.9% drop in May. While traditionally strong industries like automobiles and construction are under the weather, pharma may be required to provide the ailing economy with a shot in the arm. Peter Oliver, CGTN, Berlin.
Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates purchased thousands of graphic processing units, or GPUs, amid global shortage of semiconductors critical for building artificial intelligence software. Melchizedek reports.
Assalamu alaikum. Two powerful economies in the Gulf region join tech titans around the globe in scrambling to buy high-performance NVIDIA chips with the aim to become global leaders in the field of AI. NVIDIA is a technology company based in Santa Clara, California, and is dominant supplier of artificial intelligence hardware and software. The tech giant boasts of big-time clients such as billionaire entrepreneur Elon Musk, Chinese technology groups including Tencent and Alibaba, as well as U.S. companies like OpenAI and Google. Saudi Arabia's public research institution, King Abdullah University of Science and Technology, purchased at least 3,000 of NVIDIA's H100 chips worth $40,000 each and will receive them by the end of 2023. The company described the processor as the world's first computer chip designed for generative AI. Many Chinese nationals who graduated from universities under the U.S. Entity List have chosen to work at the Saudi university because they have been prevented from studying and working in America. The Saudi university will use the chips to build its own large language model similar to popular chatbot GPT. Meanwhile, the UAE has also purchased thousands of NVIDIA chips and has already developed its own open-source large language model known as Falcon, now accessible online. Saudi Arabia and the UAE are also front-runners for inclusion in the group of fast-growing nations known as BRICS, an acronym for the combined economies of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Barakallahu fikum jami'an, kan hada Melchizedek Kadi sa Khbar SMNI, Kuwait.
And before we end, may be inspired with the message of the appointed Son of God. And that's all for today's edition of Newsline World. For more news update, you may visit SMNINewsChannel.com or follow us on our official social media accounts on Rumble, Facebook, and Twitter. For God, for my beloved country, the Philippines, I am Franco Baranda. Thank you for watching Newsline World. And thank you to our beloved pastor, Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy, for the opportunity to be part of this program. May you continue to listen on SMNI as it delivers nothing but fair, truthful, and balanced news, because SMNI is your source of credible news.